continuing on the theme of impact investment. So what if the technology that could save a life started as a spark of an idea in a university lab? Well, tonight's conversation is actually about that journey, from that spark of an idea at university to real impact, to real breakthrough solutions. So the best innovations, they don't just solve these problems on paper, of course. They're the problems that kill our planet or destroy our planet. But what separates the dreamers from doers is that these dreamers just talk about it, and the doers are here actually fixing the problems and making things move. So we have a couple of very inspiring entrepreneurs here to come and share the stories of their businesses. So first we have Thomas, who is the CEO of Tide Ocean, which transforms ocean-bound plastic waste into high-quality materials. We also have Lukas, who is the CEO and co-founder of Hemotune, which has developed magnetic blood purification technology that could save millions of sepsis patients. They were in fact named by UBS as a global visionary for making the impossible possible. And to moderate our panel, we have Curdin, who is the head of Social Impact and Philanthropy at UBS. Let's give them a warm welcome.
So, good evening and welcome to our panel, small yet mighty panel, under the title From Spark to Impact, Technology for Life and Planet. I'm Curdin. My day job is to facilitate UBS community engagement in Switzerland and to provide our clients with philanthropy advice and services. But tonight or today, I'm delighted to guide you through this conversation with two amazing, inspiring UBS global visionaries who are using tech to tackle the big global challenges. We'll explore how a spark of inspiration can lead to real-world impact for people, for the planet, and for future generations. Let me briefly introduce our two guests and speakers. Thomas Schori, to my left, is the founder and the captain of Tide Ocean, turning ocean-bound plastic into high-performance materials. We're going to talk about that in a second. And Lukas Langenegger, CEO, co-founder of Hemotune, developing magnetic blood purification to fight sepsis and save life. Hope I got it almost right. So the first part of the discussion should really be about the spark moment. But I thought, as an icebreaker, before we dive into the spark that started your journey, let's rewind even further. And I haven't told you this, so it's going to be rather spontaneous, but Thomas, Lukas, if I had met you when you were, let's say, 8 years or 10 years old, and I would have asked you, what do you want to be when you've grown up? What would your answer have been, Thomas?
Thank you for the question. Interesting. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So since I'm a small boy, the kitchen table was kind of a meeting room of my parents. So entrepreneurship is deep in my DNA. So like reporting to someone or following duties which I have not created on my own would have been very difficult for me. So I think the spark was like freedom, entrepreneurship since I was a small boy.
Excellent. So that's how you became a captain. And yes. We're going to dwell a bit deeper there. I mean, with freedom comes a lot of responsibility as well. Maybe we're going to cover that as well. Lukas, what would 80-year-old Lukas have said?
I was very curious as a kid and very interested in science and technology. So I would probably have said that I want to become an engineer or a scientist. And I was then almost quite a bit later exposed to entrepreneurship and what you can achieve maybe through science if you are building something as an entrepreneur. So I was more, let's say, curiosity-driven.
Yeah. So freedom-driven, curiosity-driven. So there clearly was a spark before the spark, or there was some groundwork laid out for the spark to ignite. But then let's quickly talk about this spark. So what led you where you're now? How did this story start? Can you remember how you came to the conclusion that, yeah, it's going to be blood purification and fighting sepsis, Lukas?
I mean, for me, it was, I was studying chemical bioengineering at ETH, and then I was doing master thesis in the US at the MIT, more like really science-based. And then it was coincident. There was like from the chemical engineering department, there was a fondue evening at ETH, and I was sitting opposite of one of our professors, and we started to talk about these magnetic particles that he and his group had developed. And we were just like starting to talk and asking, now, what are you going to do with it? How will you use them? And then he said, you know, you could apply them in various fields. Don't you want to maybe join our group to look for applications and to develop it further? So it was really somewhat also a coincidence. And I think that's a very important aspect, to keep the eyes always open. It's very rarely a very strict plan right from the beginning. It's opportunities that you see and you take and that you develop.
And being ready then to grasp the
Yes.
opportunity as well. Yeah, very interesting. And how about you? How did the whole idea of turning ocean plastic into something valuable come up?
As I mentioned earlier, I think it's part of the DNA. I learned since I'm young, never ever earn money on the back of poor people.
Okay.
So business ethics is quite important, and when we discovered, together with my co-founder, the idea of giving waste a value, we say this is a huge opportunity, because it used to be a problem, or it's still a problem, but in every problem there is a solution, is an opportunity. And by involving local communities, to similar what Khalil presented a few minutes ago, it's like creating impact. So impact, business ethics, this is like one of the main drivers. And then the earning money, I would say, is a side product. It goes automatically when you do things right.
That's very interesting, right? Because I mean, you could also set out with the idea, let's build a business, because when you have a successful business, it will make you rich. But you basically said, let's solve a challenge, and then solve it so well that ideally we also get rich by doing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at the car shop. A car shop is solving problems. Why you bring your car to the garage? Because you have a problem. And he's fixing it, so he's also creating an impact for you. So this you can really do on different skills and with different products and services.
Beautiful. So we've covered the spark somehow, and now we want to talk about the impact. So now comes the big part of the conversation, which really is about looking into details, like how is the sausage made, right? And I mean, maybe to start with a more general question and then take it from there. If you look back at your journey, there obviously must have been challenges, there must have been hurdles, there must have been failures and setbacks, but also there must have been enablers, supporters, collaborations, which helped you get where you are. So if you look at your journey in hindsight, and you would identify maybe, you know, like the top challenges and the top enablers, how would you describe this? What would come to your mind? Thomas, you want to start?
I would say one of the biggest challenges was, and will be always time. As an entrepreneur or as a founder, I think a lot of people in this audience feel that it's time. It takes time to do something. It takes time for the financing part. It takes time for product development. It takes time for market fit. So you need to learn how you can handle time and also be patient. And this is what I had to learn as well. And it's painful, but not everything goes from today to tomorrow.
So you're not a patient person?
No, I cannot. it's my responsibility to always be like one step ahead. But I always underestimated time, and I still do it today.
And may I ask, because there are various dimensions, like one dimension is time more in the long term. So how long will it take for the business to reach break-even, and the other thing is time on a more daily basis. Does your statement encompass both, or is this related?
No, I think it's related, and time, as you mentioned, it can also be short. Sometimes you need to react quickly. So you have to take certain risk, especially as a founder. You have to say, okay, now I go, or I don't go. When you wait, sometimes you miss an opportunity. When you're too fast, you're maybe a bit too early. But
so it's also timing,
timing is the right word, correct.
Okay. So that was the challenge. We come back maybe to the enablers and supporters, but maybe challenges from you, Lukas, first. Do you also have one like top challenge, or do you have a series?
Time, I think, is something that then transforms into many other challenges. It's about funding, of course. I mean, I'm in medical technology or biotech. I mean, it just takes really years from an idea to a product where you're just loss-making, and you need to invest a lot of time and money, and that's a challenge because you need to find somebody that pays for the salaries of your employees and so on. So that's a big challenge, and with time constraints also comes focus, because you can't do everything that you might want to do. So ultimately I think time is a very, very good thing, because it entails so much of everything. In the end, we're all here for a limited time. It's the only resource that everybody has exactly. The day has 24 hours for everybody of us, and it's really the limiting thing, of course, and it translates into resources as well.
Yeah, and forces you to prioritize, obviously, as well. Right? And how about the enablers? So can you, to the same extent as precisely, point to one thing or a few things which helped you to overcome the challenges, helped you to get where you are? Where do these resources come from?
I think it's people in the end. It's your supporters, being it the customers that you're talking with. I mean, it's always very important to try to build relationships with the final users of your technology, or your product very early, because you need to focus your development on a customer need. And also, it's the investors that believe in you, or it's your very close contacts, your friends, your family, that need to support you very, very much. Because being an entrepreneur or a CEO is also sometimes quite lonely, because you can't share everything, or it's difficult to understand what struggles you face or the sleepless nights you have. So I think your direct support network is also very, very important, and certainly the most important enabler.
How is it for you?
I think a big enabler is trust. So by hiring the right people and give them the right portion of trust, actually can be very, very supportive. Some people tend to do everything on their own. Then they don't have enough time. They don't take care about the family you mentioned, which is a very important part.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that your ecosystem is healthy as well, your private ecosystem. And by having the right people right next to you and giving them trust, that could be a huge enabler, because you can duplicate yourself.
Yeah.
And when I know I'm not the right, just for me, for example, I would have never been a CFO. I'm not the person who can sit in front of a spreadsheet all day long.
Yeah.
But when you have the right guy doing that job correct, you're free, and the only decision you have to take is, do you agree on the spreadsheet or not? And maybe put in some specific numbers, but then your job is, you can focus at what you're strong at.
Yeah. So, which also, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it also means you take yourself somehow a little bit back, right? And you let someone else make important contributions, and you trust them. So this is what I hear from you.
Yeah, it's like a team player. When you have 11 Ronaldos in your company, you will never succeed. Sometimes you need some good defense people, that Ronaldo can celebrate in front, but it's a team. So that's, and also in many companies or customers that we work for, we see that this is largely underestimated.
It's interesting that both of you talk about what some people might refer to as like soft factors, as the big enablers, right? Which probably proves everyone right to believe that the real hard factors in business and in life probably are the soft factors. So it's really interesting. I have a specific question which occurred to me when preparing and looking at, you know, the available material about your organizations and so on. And this is the following: when I go on your websites, when I talk to you, and we had the opportunity to do that a few times already, one thing I realize is you're not really talking that much about the technology as such, and this is a tech for good panel, so you don't really talk about the what's and the concrete ingredients, but you do a lot of storytelling. And I also got the impression that like the whole design of things, processes, but also solutions, even your machine, which is a blood purifier, I feel, and I told you once, I feel it looks really nice and neat. So my question to you would be, in this world of business and of growth and of success, what relevance do you attribute to how things look, how things appear, to the storytelling? And I'm just making one more reference why it occurred to me. When I look at your website, I have to search quite for some time to see the granulate, the plastic material. But I see stories about watch wristbands. I see the famous dishwashing soap of one of the big Swiss retailers in your bottle. I see, I don't know how to call this correctly on an official public panel, but I see intimate wellness devices produced by a company calling the series Ocean and using your material. So many great stories in both of your cases. So long story, sorry for that, but I have to ask you, why? Like, why so much emphasis on the how and the story and everything behind? You want to go first?
When you look at the post-war industry, it was always by push. So after like the 50s, 60s, the brands developed products, pushed it into the market, told the people you have to buy the product. If they haven't sold it, they put discount until it was sold out, and then they pushed in a new collection. In my opinion, and that's my opinion, it's nowadays you need to have a certain pull. Consumers are smart, consumers are connected, and consumers want to buy emotion. And I mean, how to sell plastic as a plastic pellet? There's nothing more boring than a plastic pellet. So we need to pull the consumer, and also, as even we are a B2B business, the B2B is also a person behind. So we try to pull the people with emotion to sell them basically a commodity. And this, we think it's our opportunity to become strong in that market. It's like this push-pull relation, which we try to change.
Super insightful, thank you. And how about you? Why does your machine look so neat?
I think it's about trust. Because, I mean, if you hook yourself up to a blood purification machine, I mean, you want to be sure that it works. And you transport a lot of trust through design. I mean, that's one thing, and also a lot of usability through design. And in the end, customers want to buy solutions, they don't want to buy technology. It really depends what problem you solve for them. And the second important thing is the values that you transform, or the trust that you build. And that's why it's important that it's a whole picture, at least also in the healthcare industry. It's very important that people have trust and that the machines are designed in a good way. Not only looking good, but also functioning good, but also building the trust that this will actually work. Because lives also depend on it, and if it's already looking like it was built in a in a garage, maybe it doesn't help so much.
It won't drive trust. Very insightful. So selling emotions, building trust, and again, we're talking about soft elements in a sense. I'm curious to see whether there are any questions from the audience. I think a QR code was shared, and if we're lucky, we're gonna get some questions popping up on the screens, I learned. And whilst we're waiting for questions, maybe I'm gonna ask one more, which is, in this room there are people, I saw a lot of young people, students, I see fellow founders, maybe at a different point in their journey. If you were to share a piece of advice based on your story, maybe a piece of advice you would love to have when you started, what would that advice be?
I mean, I think what is very important is that you should pick your problem very wisely, because you know your road will be full of ups and downs, and often more downs than ups. And I think it's very important that you are working on something that is truly worth it, and that is even worth it if it fails eventually, because you know startups tend to fail. More startups fail than succeed.
Yeah.
And therefore it's important that you do something because it's close to you, because you really want to do it and you think it has value in it. So choose the problem right, and then you can also remotivate yourself in times where it's maybe more difficult.
I love that piece of advice. Pick the problem wisely you want to solve. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's super relevant, right? And you also need to feel that you can solve it, probably, right?
Yes, but also, I mean, maybe you will not know how you solve it at the beginning, but it's worth to go this route. And also another piece is like talk to your customers very early. I mean, it's very much connected, because you need to have something that people will want to buy.
When you say talking to your customers, is it, in your case, is it more like the medical personnel, or is it the person who
No, I mean, in our case, it's really the medical personnel, but I mean, in our case, it goes even further, because in healthcare, the people that benefit from it are not the people that pay for it, and are also not the people that are doing the decision if it's going to be bought.
Yeah.
So you really have to do quite a complete stakeholder analysis to really understand how the market works.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. What's the piece of advice you would have loved to have at the outset?
I think it's important. It doesn't matter if you're on IT or physical products or medical products. I think you need to analyze your value chain. So you need to create a value chain, and a value chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So you need to detect as early as possible where is your weak link and how can you fix that, because a value chain doesn't help when one link breaks.
Yeah.
So, and again, similar like I mentioned with people, when you know you're weak in that spot, ask for help.
Yeah.
Asking for help is a strength. It's not a weakness.
Yeah.
So having the right team, and I mean within the family, within friends, you always find help. So it's, I think asking for help is like one of the important assets a lot of successful founders have.
So daring also to ask for help. Love it. Cool. So I'm looking at the time, and this is the moment where we need to wrap up. You have stands out there, so people can come and get to know you, they can talk to you, they can look at your products. But I want to wrap this up by really thanking you, Thomas and Lukas, for sharing your journeys with us. Over the last few minutes, you've shown us what I think is remarkable and powerful, which is that building a successful business and driving positive outcomes for people and planet are not only not conflicting goals, but they can actually reinforce each other. And I think this is super inspiring. So you've demonstrated that tech, when guided by purpose, when picked the right problem, can be both commercially valuable and deeply meaningful, yes, can be a force for good. So with this, thank you for sharing your stories, thank you for sharing your insights, thank you for being such an inspiration, and thank you for being such amazing global visionaries.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Curdin.
And have a good rest of the Startup Nights, and you guys enjoy the rest. Thank you.
Thank you.
You.